Hello everybody, so where we last left off, we did quick rigging and human IK rigging, and both are very good for doing basic stuff, but you're never really going to use those in the industry. And the reason I say that is because while they're both really good to get something done quickly and somewhat accurately, you're never going to have nearly as much control or expression as you could if you do as if you were doing it manually. And what I mean by that is if you're doing a character, let's just say like that's a dog for example. Dog has four legs and you can't really do that with a quick rig or a human IK because they're not made to do anything like that. They're only made for bipedal characters. Or if you had like a tail or other weird appendages, anything like that, you would need to do this manually. And it's always good to just kind of understand how you're going to do it manually in order to have a proper rigging tutorial. So here we have our dummy character as we did before. And I'm going to first show you a quick thing about rigging, and then we'll move it on part by part. So first thing before we go any further is let's go to look at our toolbar. So I'm in the rigging tab right here, and we're mainly going to be using skeleton, skin, deform, and constrain. These are our four main tools for rigging, and we're not going to use deform or constrain until later on, so we're going to focus on skeleton and skin. We're not even going to use skin until later on either. Skeleton's the main one. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to my front view. Let me just zoom in out like that. I'm going to leave the wireframe on, so if you ever need to. So I'm going to change it from solid to wireframe. You could also press 4 on your keyboard to set that up too. So let me get my, okay, just want to have my looking on there. So to create a skeleton, we just go to skeleton, create joints, and I'm just going to show you right here. So right off the bat, I just create a small skeletal system, and all it is really a series of joints, these little circles, and these triangular pyramids connecting in between our bones. So joints work very similar to a parenting system. So let's just say I want to connect this to this. I would select the child, then the parent, or the joint that I'm connecting it to, and press P for parent. This way, this joint is being controlled by this one, which is controlled by this, so on and so forth. So as I'm clicking through, the rest light up in that chain. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start creating a series of skeletal systems and then combining them together into creating our character's rig. So let me just zoom in a little bit like that. And you always want to start with your root joint. So your root joint is the area where most of your skeletal systems are connecting together. It's usually your center of gravity, which will be around here. And I'm just going to put one joint right there. And then we're just going to kind of move and put joints where we need them to be. So in this case, I'm going to put one right here for the stomach joint. Put one up here for the chest. One up here for the neck. I usually like to put one on the top of the head. You don't really need to, but it's usually good to have if you want to work with it later on. So that's one series of joints. The next one I'm going to do is I'm going to do the arm. So I'm going to put one right around here for the shoulder or clavicle. That one for the actual shoulder, elbow. Let me zoom in a bit. Try to get this as close as possible. Wrist, and end of the hand. Same thing goes for the end of the hand. Normally if we had fingers we would have joints there, but the end of the hand I'm just going to put that one there. Next up is the leg. So hip, knee, ankle, and toe. So with that we have a couple of our joints done. Now it's time to attach them to our root joint. So for the leg, I'm just going to click on the leg, hold shift, select the other joint, and press P. So now you can see the chain going downwards. A good way to tell if you're working on your rig correctly is if you look at the arrows, they should always be pointing outwards away from the root joint. So if my root joint's here, you can see the arrow points down to this one, and this one. So let's just do the next one right here. I'll parent that. And that looks pretty good so far. Of course, our rig isn't on our character just yet, which is okay. I could just take my guy. Let's just move him over into there. And now we can start adjusting him from the other view. So I'm going to do my leg first. So we'll start here. Just move it into place. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the closer it is to being perfect, the better it's going to be. So that looks good. That looks good. This is my toe, so I'm going to bring that right around there. So the leg is all done. Let's go with the stomach. Bring that a little closer. The neck, I'm going to lower a little bit. And I'm really just using the center of the sphere and its own geometry to kind of get a good gauge on where it should be. That looks good. Next we'll do the arms. So I'll just go in, bring that over there. That looks pretty good like that. This one, I'm going to move this way a bit. This has some weird stuff going on, but there should be good. That's fine like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is, if we look at our geometry, or our joints to be more specific, they're not facing the right way. So we want everything to be in relation to the world. And if you look right here, I have this red line sticking up like that. I have the red line sticking down like that. They should all be going the exact same way. They have to be in the correct orientation. If they're not, when we skin it and move the character around, it's not going to really work out too well. So what I need to do is go in to skeleton, orient joint. We'll go through the option box, and I'm just going to orient it to the world. This way everything kind of goes and changes up naturally and nicely, so that looks perfect. Everything looks really good. So just double checking everything, and I like it. So the next thing I'm going to do before we move on to the other side is I want to name things. So naming things is pretty crucial when it comes to rigging, because for one, if you're a person rigging a character, the person who's going to animate it would love to know what joints they're moving around, or if they're going through the outliner. So if I open the outliner like this, and let's just say I want to know exactly where my left leg joint is. If I go through here, I have no idea what I'm clicking on because they're only named joint, so like whatever number joint they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to name them, and it's going to help us create the other side of our body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up all of these little joints right here so I can see the entire joint chain of my character. So I'm just going through, and what we want to do is we want to name all of these. So if I click on this one right here, this is what's called my root joint because it's lighting up all of them. It's the thing that's controlling everything. So I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to name this root, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. So this one right here, I'm going to name stomach, and you can name this whatever you want. It's really up to you. So I'm just going through the chain, looking at what's lighting up, and seeing what's the root of that joint. So in this case is the chest. Right here is the neck. Oops. Let me make sure this is on. There we go. And this I'll do head. So now we're going to go into the clavicle. So when it comes to the arms and legs, you want to have a nice organized naming system. So in this case, since I know this is my left arm, even though I'm looking at it from the front, I know it's left, I want to name this accordingly. So this is L for left underscore clavicle. This is left underscore shoulder. The L underscore is very important. You could name it, go and title it as left fully, but it's usually good to stick to one naming setup, because that way it carries over nicely and it's neat. So like this is left elbow, left underscore wrist, and then L underscore hand. This way everything is nice and neat. Then we'll move on to the leg. So this is left leg or hip, it's up to you. Oops. And all I'm doing is just kind of going and naming it anything you want. You could name these joints however you feel. It's just as long as you could get the point across on what they are and the animator can understand it, it makes their lives and your lives a lot easier. Because in the industry, you don't want somebody coming back to you every other day saying, hey, what is this tool? What is this working with? Why am I able to do this, but I can't do this? So keeping things organized, insanely helpful. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the other side of our character. Now this only works really if you have a symmetrical character, but you could do it with an asymmetrical character, you just have to adjust it later on. So now that I've got my leg selected right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to skeleton, mirror joints, and I'm going to go through the option box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my setup right here, and I'm going to go mirror across X, Y. I'm going to search for L underscore and replace it with R underscore. So what that's going to do is it's going to take all the joints I have selected, see if it has an L underscore on it, and replace it with an R underscore. So in this case, if I hit apply, oops, I have it going to the wrong section, so let me undo that. Let us try YZ. There we go. So now, if I look at it, hold on, it didn't rename it right there. So let's try it again. There we go. So now I have the right leg, and if I open this up, you can see that it changes that L underscore to R underscore and goes through that section. I'm going to do the same thing with the chest, or the arm I mean, from the chest. I'm going to hit mirror, and there we go. So now we have all the skeletal bones and joints that we need for our rig. So the next video, I'm going to show you how to create what's called IK handles, and then we're going to start working with controls. So see you in the next one.